that made this request. I appreciate you. Let's get this going. So, it's always difficult with these phone recordings to get a good sense of what's going on. But there are some really nice things about what I'm hearing right now. Let me increase the volume so you can hear them as well, and also microphone. There we go. The voice that we predominantly hear is singing in the low, and doing a wonderful job of that. And those harmonies are tasty. So the lows there, if you take your ears and try to focus them on that smoky low voice, and that harmony right there is really, really nice. One of the things that it's hard to appreciate, but once you hear it, you can't unhear it. I went to a performance once, live, and it was fantastic. And then I watched it later on a phone, and I was like, oh, she's flat. She's like really flat, but like I didn't hear that when it was live. Intonation really, really struggles when you have the limited frequency range that phones have to work with. So when you hear really nice harmonies like that, it's very, very, very spot on. So props. Okay, is that not a fantastic harmony right there? They're so in sync. Let's see if there's earpieces. It's hard to see. I don't think there is. The guitar takes a break. In this situation, you're usually looking for a drummer to set the pace. In this instance, it's the guitarist. But the guitarist like pieces out for this part. It's not impossible to do a thing like that together, but you really have to pay attention and rehearse really well. Last time I had to do this, it was at like a church gig, and you just really have to be familiar with the piece, and you have to really be attentive to one another. But what I see here is a bunch of people with their eyes closed digging it. So maybe the girl on my left, I think she's on your left too in the stream. Yeah. She's giving a little side eye, so she might be looking for some cues. But that's just, me making, I don't know. So either way, it's incredibly on time and together, which is super cool. That's really interesting. She clearly is one of the higher voices because as she's going low. She's singing wonderfully. But you can tell she's in her low range. What I love about her in this moment, when she's on her low, is that she's not trying to make the low very loud, because when you do that, you give up... Here, I'll just show you. With the power of science! That first one is the one where I put as much air behind it as I can. Let's listen to that first. So you can see in between... So this is a spectrometer. The way that this graph works is that each line is a frequency, and then the more teal it is, the louder it is. Also, it will show you when there is air. Those little fuzzy spots in between the first two teal lines, that's air leaking from my folds, right? So we put in as much air as we could, and it sounds really low and powerful, but kind of not pretty, right? Let's look at the second note. Right here. You can see that this is a brighter vowel, and you can see that these overtones are way louder and more numerous. Now the bottom is not as loud, but the fact that those upper partials are as loud and as numerous as they are is what gives us a way more lush sound. Let's take a listen to that. You'll hear the difference. See, it falls off a little bit at the end there because of my technique, but the point remains. Like in her power range, she's not pretending she's not in her power range, and she's giving really clean, brighter vowels, and it sounds really lush. I love this call and response from them. So this is really, really musically intelligent. I'm really having a good time with this. They're, as a collective, giving the emphasis to words that are important by singing together. This is very common with overdubs. It's particularly prevalent in rap, where you'll hear rappers overdub the words that are important within the phrase. So you have the same thing here, but they're wonderfully blending. It's a really nice aesthetic. Right? That one on C, they just all join in, and it's really lovely. It says something that it sounds so good at this like level of quality of the recording. This is fantastic. There is something I want to point out, that this lusciousness is not, it's more than the demonstration that I showed. I'm gonna get something up real here right quick so you can all appreciate this. So I want us to, this is something that's really important when you want lush vocals. Posture is very, very, very key. Look at how I'm starting here, right? Notice my body. Notice how far my body went down, right? My head is all the way between my knees at the end of this stretch. It is a good few, it is almost a foot above my knees in the beginning of it. So why does this matter? Well, there's a reason. To your torso. They don't have any will of their own, and while the diaphragm is involved, so too is the entirety of the torso. So if your muscles are so tight that you are, like, they're pulling you back a good foot, right? That you have to stretch out in order to get them to relax to that degree, you're going to have what we saw earlier from the spectrogram. Let me go back and point that out. What we see here, we literally see it, is air escaping, a loud, fundamental note, and no upper partials that sound any good. They're weak. It sounds uninteresting, unlush. So when we go back to look at their posture, I want you to take notice how they're standing so relaxed. Is this?
We giving y'all something real special. Our first little project.
Let's see if I can get a better shot.
Go ahead, Gabby.
Nice, that's good. This is super, super important. This is also the hardest thing to teach about singing. You can tell someone to, keep your tongue forward. You can tell someone to use less air, and, work on jaw tension. But, like, at the end of the day, I think you have to do compound stretches, and you have to limit the, you can exercise, but you shouldn't be doing, like, super big, like, powerlifting things, because you're going to, make your muscles real stiff. I want you to look at how every single one of them has their shoulders are extremely mobile. There's no stiffness like there is in mine. Nice. That's fantastic. All right. Let me do one more, because I can't help but fall in love with this stuff. Ooh, that's so nice. Let's talk about harmonies real fast, because this is important. Simple triad, nothing big, no big deal. Over here, we have 3 voices stacked. I want you to hear the difference. And in particular, it's going to be really, really hard to pull this off, but we're going to try. Let me just maximize that a little bit more. I want you to pay attention to, these lines have to be really, really, really bold to hear it. What I'm talking about here, some of you know, is just tuning versus equal temperament. So equal temperament, every half step is exactly the same, right? In just tuning, it doesn't work like that. So what is just tuning? Just tuning is like when any instrument that can micro adjust pitch, you can tune to each other in a way that is far more sonorous than something that is in equal temperament. And you'll be able to hear it. Not bad, right? But very different, right? It's the same chord, but the sound is different. What's going on is, let me just point this out. Okay? So if you look, it's very difficult to see because it's not too bright. But on the left side, this dark blue dot is on the low end of this like white little line here, right? This thing. On the right, that same frequency is up a little bit. And we go down, same thing. Oops. There we go. Look at how low the next line down is. It's very hard to see again, and we get the same thing here. The point I'm trying to make is this. In equal temperament, certain intervals are extremely different. Is a lot different than this. Anyway, somewhere in between that. Thirds in equal temperament tuning are very, 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 very flat, comparably to just tuning. So when we listen to these incredible singers harmonizing, it's very, very satisfying in a way that you can't get from a piano. Furthermore, what I really like about this is their choice of vowels, right? A can be A, it can be A, it can be I, right? There's so many different ways to make a vowel, right? And all of those different choices have consequences in terms of, like, you know, some of them are more attractive sounding, etc. And that's what we're seeing here, is that they're doing what's called blending, which is they're matching their vowels. String instruments cannot do this. String instruments, you know, the violin player can be really, really good and have really good technique. And that's about it. They can match volume with each other, but at the end of the day, the body of the violin dictates what the tone is. So violins don't blend. The only instruments that can really blend like this is the human voice. And so whenever there's a group like this and they're blending and they're perfectly tuning to one another, it's a real pleasure and unique experience. That run was very, very nice. It was very, very exact. Right? Like very, very right on the money. Oh, yes. Dang. That's some power right there. Dang. Okay, so there's she's doing like a few things there that are really cool. This, the thyroid tilt, right? They're remarkably different. They're very, very different. So let me show you what belt is like on here, what classical is like, and what you can do when you bring them together. You can do both at the same time. You didn't know that, did you? Unless you watch the channel, in which case I cover this ad nauseum, but let's get to it. So if you see right here, there's a very, very obvious difference in how prominent the sound of our upper partials are, how strong they are. You can see that in the belt, which is on the left-hand side, on this side right here. You can see that every single overtone is pretty darn loud and goes up pretty high. The reason for this is that belt, when you tilt that cricoid cartilage, your folds get super fat. And so the sound builds up, whoosh, right? That inherently makes every frequency that you're singing uniformly loud. This is why belting is epic and also kind of dangerous, right? If the folds are really fat and you put too much air behind it, boosh. They can come together a little too much. There's also something else I want to point out here. On the left-hand side here, right? Oops, wrong thing to pick up. Where is it? There we go. Here we go. Nope, you're the wrong one. You're the wrong... Come on, get out. Okay, whatever. Right here, there's that fuzziness, right? Belt does not like too much air. So if you have that situation, you'll start to get air leakage where the folds won't entirely close. So they'll be like this, and then they'll just stay open a little bit. So this is the difficult part about belt, is that you can't put too much air behind it, not only because it's not healthy, but also it will lower the strength of it. So let's hear what belt sounds like, though. Let's hear that by itself. Yeah, come on, Estel. Come on, voice print. What is going on here? There we go. Let's play it. You're not there. Ah. So you can hear the difference between the classical and the belt. Pretty dramatic, right? One's super loud. You're not there. Ah. The other one is, you know, lighter. You know, that's not sounds okay, but it's, you know, not terribly powerful. You can put them together. You're not there. Ah. Ah. You're not. Right? Big difference as we get to here. You can actually, so what is the telltale sign that you're using the thyroid cartilage? It's this vibrato. Look at how much this will go up and down, right? The oscillation of pitch is a result of vibrato. There is less of it here on the left-hand side. It's a habit for me to tilt my thyroid cartilage even as I belt. But I try to contain it, and you can see that it's relatively contained. There's a little bit of oscillation, but not too much. Here, you see the big difference, right? If the middle is thyroid tilt and the left is belt, look at how freaking loud this is over here. It's massive difference. Additionally, the hot spot up here, right here, is due to what's called the aryepiglottic sphincter. That's where that really bitey sound comes from. So this is what she's doing right here. Let's go back to our lovely singers and take a look at this. And then as she goes to the top, she stops tilting her thyroid cartilage and just has an incredible belt. So the belt is hot in the higher frequencies, and you can still contract your aryepiglottic sphincter, which makes those frequencies even hotter, even louder. So really good high note technique here. Notice how warm her voice gets when the vibrato is introduced. She's going to go to her low notes. Right there, that's not just a matter of range. When the thyroid tilt happens, and the thyroid cartilage tilts, you get a lot more warmth. That's going to be just straight, no nonsense to the larynx, right? This is going to, you'll hear the difference here. Hear that? Boom. That's the tilt. Warms up the sound quite a bit. Fantastic. So right now she's doing, I guess, what you would call a mix. So what does that mean, though? The vocal folds are not entirely adducted. She's intentionally making some of the folds adduct. Some of them are, like, you know, a little bit together. And then there's that space in between. And that space in between, you can tell it's there because you can hear the hiss of air leaking. And the result of that is a much more gentle tone. Harmonies of choice. And this is what I love right here. I get a lot of questions about how do I hit high notes? And the answer is high notes are an extension of good technique. But also, that question has in and of itself a problem. How do I hit high notes? The real question should be, in which way should I hit high notes? Because there are many ways. We saw the belt, we saw the thyroid tilt, and now we're seeing mix as well, right? The other thing, too, is that you can go from one to the other. You can go from belt to also adding a thyroid tilt. You can go from belt to mix. You can change as you're on the note. And so from the singer on the far right, we hear that example. Lighter mix. Belt with traction of the finger. So she just transitioned while she was up there.
Where you going, baby? Where you going?
All right. This is a pleasure. Thank you, Dion T, for the donation, and what a pleasure to listen to this. Thank you very much.